Hey, it's Drybear. The First Descendant devs just completed their developer live stream going over the patch next week. So let's dive into what's coming and all the sneak peeks that we got. So this is the season 2 second update that we're gonna see in next week. So the new content, the improvements, the skins and content, and don't worry, they did show off all of these, so we'll be able to see these just in their whole glory set up here. But the main focus here is gonna be Void Erosion Purge, which is the scaling tower of difficulty. These will give new materials that you'll use for some of the new content as well. Weapon core unlocking, which is a system that allows you to make your weapons, your ultimate weapons, stronger. And Ines Raya, the new Descendant, which is confirmed to be a singular tech electric Descendant. Void Abyss Defiler, which will be the new Void Abyss boss. The Infernal Walker is going away and the Defiler is coming back in, but the ETA vendor will still have all of the cosmetics, including for the Infernal Walker. You'll just only be able to fight the Defiler. And then hard special op change, plus a whole bunch of other, things like reworking Luna, Valby, Jaber, that sort of thing. Starting with Ines Raya, the new electric Descendant. She actually reminds me a lot of, if anyone played Smite, Zeus's kit. She has a chain lightning effect. She has a persistent tech item that will appear above the enemy that does consistent damage, and she can cause it to detonate or, explode or post open, doing additional electric damage. She also has this wind up channel effect where she kneels down and fires electric in front of her. Hopefully it doesn't root her in place, but it does seem to do so. And then her ultimate is a giant electric storm that she can spawn through a projectile deployable that just does continuous electric damage in an area. So she does seem to be a very capable mobber. I don't know if she'll ever replace Bunny, considering Bunny is just incredibly fast, but she does seem to have a lot of power and prowess in her kit overall. So with her first ability, the Chain Lightning, it looks like it is either, I think it's just a targeted ability that you just activate. It's like Haley's 1 or Keelan's Blast. It just targets an enemy. Then you will zap that enemy and it will bounce between nearby enemies. I'm sure with range modifiers, we'll be able to change how far that bounces and then the damage that it deals. Then those targets go into what's called a conductor state. They are now conducting, and that's where you see that little deployable above their head that's zapping them. It does a seemingly small amount of electric damage based on the footage that they've shown, and then she will be able to use her second ability to cause anyone that's conducted to pulse open or erupt, doing electric damage in an area, so she can actually do some good damage that way. So Chain Lightning just gives her a really good way to spread these conductor effects and then detonate them to do even more damage, so it just gives her a nice way to play. And honestly, I kind of hope that more of the abilities are more like this, that allow you to actually control one target, but then it spreads between them. I think Cryo Shot for Haley is like a start, but it does feel kind of clunky sometimes. So we'll see once we get hands-on with Ines how this functions. Her third ability is has a pose of some kind that allows her to kneel down, and then she can channel up and then do a wave of electric in front of her. So she will actually do this cone attack, what it seems like a cone or a wedge that flies out in front of her and does electric damage. And she can do some modifiers with this with red mods that we've seen that could be kind of interesting. My big hope is that this isn't locked down in place. It does look like this is another Haley ability where it locks you in one spot. I really hope they stop doing this in general, because I think that it doesn't really fit the hack and slash playstyle that they're trying to promote with this game, in that like locking yourself in place in a looter shooter where there are persistent ground AoEs and explosions, and aggro from mobs and bosses is random, which means you lock yourself in place right when the Colossus turns to you or right when the commander turns to you and you get aggro, and now you're stuck in this locked animation where you can't move. I feel like that's never really going to work for this kind of game, and it just feels weird, but it is how it functions for her. Lastly, her ultimate is just a targeted electric storm. It does seem to be per projectile, so the thing that, at least from the footage they've given us, it seems like the glacial cloud modifier for the ultimate blizzard on Viessa, and then it turns into a projectile, so it launches the projectile forward. If it collides with terrain or with an enemy, it'll deploy and create this big electric storm on top of everything as well. So I think that gives you an option to play around with that, so it actually does do good electric damage. And again, it doesn't seem to be big enough where you can actually scale. I mean, if this is unscaled base AoE size for them, I think this is going to be a really easy way for them to create some really cool, awesome area control. Like if she can make this even bigger and she can cover like large capture areas with this, I think it's going to make a big difference for them. And in general, I think this is better than like the default casting for Blizzard that requires a ground target, or the turret placement for Jayber, which again requires a specific spot in the world. I think having this is a nice deployment for this overall. But again, it's not like the super high octane speed that you get from Bunny, but it does seem to be a very good kit for clearing lots of AoE mobs. Next, let's talk about, they showed off one of her red mods. They said that this modifies her chain lightning ability. I don't know if that was them misspeaking, and it feels like this should modify her charge and throw ability, not her chain lightning. It'd be weird if this modified her chain lightning, like completely reworked her chain lightning instead of the charge. But they wanted, I guess they added a new Gunnar pose like the other one. She will kneel down, go into a sprinter stance, dash forward, and then when she stops at the dash, she will flip and do a big AoE explosion, which I think combined with, you know, chain lightning and other things, assuming it doesn't replace chain lightning, would give her some nice mobility. She can dash between targets. Hopefully this doesn't get stuck on things or clip on stuff. It's fine to do this in a test area where there's flat level ground, but if there's elevation, rocks, you know, things that block your way, dashes like these can be kind of weird. And also it might be kind of weird on a networked environment moving this fast. So we'll see how this actually functions overall. I'm guessing this replaces her 3 where she kneels down, but they in the live stream they mentioned that it replaces her chain lightning. So you might have chain lightning turning into this, which is kind of odd, but it is kind of a cool modification for a red mod. They also confirmed that the farming method for Ines is going to be Void Vessels hard, and that they're moving with the update next week Keelan to Void Vessel easy or normal. So you'll do Void Vessel normal to get Keelan parts, and you'll do Void Vessel hard to get Ines parts. And I'm guessing that it's going to stay the same, that the other like 50% of it's going to be Keelan and then Fellow for normal, and then for hard it'll be 50% Ines, 50% Fellow in both cases. So you will be doing a lot more Void Vessels if you're trying to farm the new Ines. But overall, I think she's going to be a nice addition to the game. She will have some good AoE mobbing. It is another electric character, which we previously only had 2. I think it's another character for people to get excited about. She is confirmed to be singular and tech, which means that people will probably be able to use, depending on her build setup and which abilities are singular versus not, they likely will be able to use some of their bunny reactors that they've already farmed with Ines, because if, you know, one of her abilities is singular scalar, if you have a singular cooldown or a singular, you know, damage or range reactor, you'll be able to play with that as part of your kit. And there will be 3 characters getting some quality of life updates and some minor, some major reworks for them as well. They had previously talked about doing Luna, Jayber, Viessa, and Valby. However, it seems like they're kind of reneging on Viessa, in that the buffs that Viessa got at the start of the season were enough for her. I guess people are happy with it. You know, people seem to be pretty pleased where Viessa is now. So Viessa is not getting a rework in the second part of the season, but Valby will be getting some usability increases. So the first one is Jayber is going to be able to place turrets freely. If you put a new turret down, the old one will disappear. You'll be able to just constantly place turrets whenever you want. And they're also changing his unique weapon to be AoE, which means you don't need pinpoint accuracy to trigger the bonus on the turret. You will be able to shoot near the turret, the explosion will hit it, and you'll get a lot of extra options for that as well, which hopefully just makes him a little bit more viable. I think obviously we're still waiting for an ultimate Jayber in the first place, but hopefully with a lot of reworks and improvements, they can make that seem a lot more feasible in the near future, maybe, depending on what comes next. The next rework is for Luna, and I actually expected more of a rework here. It seems like they're making some nice quality of life changes for Luna. There's going to be shorter buildup on her songs. You have to wait as long before getting the full benefit. They're going to make it so the notes only change when using an enhanced song, so you can stay on one song longer if you choose to. And they're also going to have a lower penalty for failing songs. However, I didn't hear anything around her being able to use her weapon more often, like being able to maybe hit the notes with an ability rather than firing, so that she can actually use a regular weapon, or anything like major on the kit rework itself. It does give her some nice, you know, usability increases. Less penalty is great as well, and all of that's going to go into her feeling better, but I feel like it doesn't address some of the core foundational design flaws that Luna has. But if you're a Luna main, let me know what you think about these changes, and if this is going far enough for her, or if this is exactly what she needed. Then the third character to get reworked is going to be Valby, and these are some awesome changes. You just saw the first one there. During her channeled water state, she can actually jump now. I don't know if we can grapple. They didn't show it in the footage and they didn't mention it, but at least we can jump now, which means we're not locked to the ground. Hopefully she retains her ability to move through targets like she's always had. Like, not being stopped by enemy collision has been a big part of her like glide water form feeling really good. And the fact that they're adding the ability to jump and double jump during it is going to be a really nice change. They're also making it so Laundry Bomb, instead of stacking on itself with multiple Laundry Bombs on top of each other, if you hit an existing Laundry Bomb with a new Laundry Bomb projectile, it'll just make the bubble bigger. You can see even with this, we don't know if this is modded or not with range or radius and things like that, but you could actually just make a very large bubble that's sucking enemies in and dealing damage. This solves so many problems. One is that it's only one source of the vacuum, which means they're not competing with each other, moving mobs around constantly. So there's one source of the vacuum pulling enemies in, and you can also spread the radius bigger and bigger rather than having multiple Laundry Bombs in one spot, which I think is going to be really big. They also are changing her water so that if she's standing on her water, regardless, she is always regenerating MP, which I think is a nice change. Moving on to the Void Erosion Purge. So this is going to be a 30-floor scaling difficulty mode that will focus on testing your build as best as you can. And so you will constantly be climbing up and up and up and up, getting higher and higher in difficulty with more and more challenges. There will be benefits for using elemental bonuses and things like that. And a lot of the loot that you're looking for from some of the new stuff will come from this as well. Now, they did say that there's going to be some special matchmaking requirements for this. You will have to be, I believe, MR18 to unlock this. But the big thing is that because there's multiple floors, they didn't want people stopping on a floor and then queuing for the current floor at every single level, because it would fragment the matchmaking too much. So there's going to be batches of matchmaking. They mentioned that the level 1, 5, 9, 13, and 17 will all have their own matchmaking checkpoints. And what I'm guessing is, like, if you're wherever you are in between those checkpoints, at least the most logical way to use this is that it, like, say there's a checkpoint at level 5. If you're at level 7 and you're not yet at the next checkpoint, when you matchmake with other players, it'll just put you at the previous checkpoint so you can queue with a group more easily between those. But overall, it seems like it's going to be a fun new difficulty mode to challenge your build, see how your build is working, try out new combinations, and maybe scale up with new elements and different character builds that will just be a nice challenge addition to the game. They will not be launching with leaderboards, but they do say in a future update, these will have leaderboards as well, so you can compare against other players to see how you are doing the leaderboard updates. You'll also notice in the footage here that you actually have these special augmentation cores dropping. These are going to be, I think, the primary source, or maybe the only source of what you're going to get for the new weapon unleash or weapon unlock mode, like, you know, functionality for our weapons, as you could get these little gems, like little Final Fantasy jewels that you're getting from this. Which segues us perfectly into the unlock core, the weapon unleash system. They mentioned this is only going to be for ultimate weapons, and honestly, I was a little underwhelmed with the design portion of this. It just feels like it's a little bit of a stacking system that didn't have a lot of elegance to it, but it is more weapon power. Regardless of how cool the system is, it does mean that we can make our weapons stronger. So the way this works is you will be doing the Void Erosion to be able to unlock up to 5 core slots or sockets on your weapon. And you can think of these sockets as essentially being a repeat of the stat reroll system on your weapon. So right now there are 4 implicit stats you can roll on your ultimate weapons, and you will roll those and re-roll those to try and get the right ones. And this weapon core unleash is essentially 5 more slots for the same thing. So essentially you will be able to get 9 total RNG stats on your weapon that all scale up, which again is more power. But the way this works is you'll be collecting these jewels from the Void Erosion, and then you'll be able to equip these cores to the weapon, and when you equip it, it will randomly generate one of the stats that go along with it. The stat pool for these is essentially almost 95% the same as the stat pool for the 4 rolled stats. There's like 1 or 2 new stats in there, but for most part, it's all the same. Hip fire accuracy, firearm attack versus colossi, the 4 elemental attacks, weak point damage, critical damage. It's all the same stats. You can essentially just RNG roll the same stats on the 4 stats on your weapon and get 5 more instances of those based on this new core system, which again Not super elegant, doesn't really impress me on the design side, but it is more power, so we will be able to make our weapons stronger with the new Void Erosion control. And on top of that, it functions a little bit nicer. You can re-roll it, but you don't have to replace it like the current system. So you can see on here that he rolled a lower value by equipping the core, and you can choose to keep the existing options or reset it, which makes things a little bit easier for you. And they showed the list of stats here. Again, you can see that it's basically 1-to-1 with the stats that you get on your normal weapons. There are some new ones on here like grappling hook charge time increase ratio and movement speed. Both of those are really nice. So being able to add movement speed to a weapon is going to be a cool change. There's even beam charge gain speed, which you can get on your beam weapons, which is going to be a really nice addition there. But you can see that all the usual suspects are there: elemental damage, crit hit rate, crit hit damage, weak point, firearm attack, versus colossi, you know, all that kind of stuff. Additional firearm attack against all 3 legions, recoil, hip fire accuracy, it's all the same. So essentially is stat re-rolling on weapons squared. It's the same system, just like planted on top of itself and stacking with itself. Not super fancy, not really inspired, but very powerful. And since we're on the topic of weapons, we got to talk about this weirdo change that's coming in here. So I don't know really what inspired this change, and I don't really know what they're trying to go for here, but it's something. So what they're going to do is they've picked these weapons. What is this? 4, 4, 4, 4 plus 2, 12, 16. They picked 16 weapons, and they're now going to forcibly fix elemental damage to those weapons as additional damage. So now when you're using the, Greg's Reversed Fate, it will do fire damage always. There's definitely a lot of questions around how this impacts the mod system right now, because obviously if you run, say, like, Fallen Hope as an assault rifle, which now does default toxic damage, if I run chill enhancement or fire enhancement with this, what happens? Because the way their system is set up in-game, the First Descendant, is that each weapon can only cause one type of elemental status. So if I have, 500 toxic damage and 499 chill damage on a weapon, I can only cause poison because the toxic value is higher. So if they're forcing these weapons to have elemental affixes on them by default, does that mean that if you run the elemental enhancement, you can't trigger those elements with those anymore? Some of these are pretty well lined up, like Clairvoyance and Frostwatcher should be chill. They're always going to be run chill, but there's some weapons like Blue Beetle which get run on more than just Sharon as an electric weapon, so I'm very curious if that's going to have some conflicts there. Like, I just finished rolling my Hammer and Anvil as a chill weapon for Infernal Walker with a perfect chill roll, and now all of a sudden it does electric damage. They didn't specify how this is going to affect the mods themselves. They did say that it's going to be additional damage, hopefully at the end of the calculation. So it's very possible that you'll just see 2 elemental numbers popping up, one from your mod and one from the built-in. But there's just a lot of questions around the status effects they apply and how this is going to scale with the systems we already have. I feel like they could have just added in more elemental mods or more ways, or maybe even put this in the weapon core system. I don't know, but now these 16 weapons are all going to have built-in fixed default value elements with them that'll come along, and it will require some future testing once the patch is out next week to see what extent this affects the build status or the plan for these kind of weapons in general. Next up is the new Void Abyss boss, Defiler. He's basically Devourer on crack. So he is Toxic Element, as you can see on the screen here, so he is confirmed to be Toxic Element. And he does seem to have the same moveset as the normal Devourer as well, with the deployables that come out. All of his poison is purple, and there's AoEs all over the place, and he does prefer to be in melee range. It just seems to be far more deadly and dangerous, and will probably function very similar to the Infernal Walker, and that's more of a DPS race where you try not to die by the amount of damage that's coming your way. But of course, him being toxic means that if you're running an Ultimate Sharon build or a Bunny build or maybe Ines build, you'll be able to do extra damage with abilities, and then maybe even with the new fixed element weapons like Blue Beetle, we'll be able to do some electric damage to him as well to help burn him down. But he will be being introduced into the game. Infernal Walker will be removed from the game as well. However, They did confirm that the items in the ETA 0 shop, like the skin and the backpack, the toy, all of that is going to be kept in the shop, even though Infernal Walker will be gone. So hopefully they just continue doing this. I think it is a nice addition to the game. It is a good way to test strong builds, and I think it also allows us to build heavily into a weakness counter system, right? For Infernal Walker, we saw a lot of people build super strong Haley builds or super strong Viessa builds with chill element as a way to counter him, because there's finally a boss that deserved that kind of countering, and hopefully Defiler is the same way. They also showed off the skins for this one. I honestly was not a huge fan of the Infernal Walker skins, but I do think at least the male variant of this skin is very cool. It feels very Halo old school Flood style, so I would love to pick this up for male Descendants in general. So they show off the male version, the female version, and then the backpack version shown off on a mannequin that they chose intentionally. So this is the toy that you can get for the Defiler, which you can collect and keep. Same thing for the Infernal Walker, and then based on their own words, you'll be able to get the toy still by getting the same exact vouchers you got for Infernal Walker, just by clearing Defiler, and the store will just continue to update as we get more and more items on it. Additionally, they're also making Frostwalker and Obstructor soloable. So those will be joining the list of soloable Void Intercept, which means that the only Void boss in the entire game after the update next week that cannot be soloed is Deathstalker. I'm curious if they ended up changing any of the mechanics, specifically for Obstructor, who locks you in the prism, and then you have to be broken out by teammates. I don't know if they did any adjustments to these, if they just made them soloable or not. I mean, it could just be that Obstructor becomes a DPS race, that you get locked in the prism, you're guaranteed to die, and then you have 3 lives that only you can use, and then you die 3 times and it's over, and it might just be a DPS race, which probably would work fine, but it would be nice if they made some adjustments for solo play on Obstructor, where maybe you can deal with the prism, or maybe the prism doesn't even happen in solo play, just to make it a little bit more reasonable and a little less weird, but we'll just have to see. Frostwalker being soloable is great, and means the Lepics of the world can go one cycle him on their own over and over and over. Same thing for Obstructor, so now you can basically make a build to counter every boss in the game except for Deathstalker and push your way through. Next, they talk about some changes to the hard special ops missions and some mission support changes as well, so we can just show the Void Erosion control here, but they are going to be making the special ops missions, the hard version of special ops, harder. So what they're going to do is they're going to add more Elite Vulgus spawning, not just the trash mobs, but the Elite Vulgus spawning, and they're also going to add more champion effects like the bubbles and affixes and things like that will continue to ramp up towards the end of the hard special ops. So I guess they determined that the hard special operations version was too easy and they're making it harder. But to go along with this, they're also going to be adding in advanced shape stabilizers as a craftable mat. So you can actually craft the advanced shape stabilizers now, and the material that you need to craft them is going to come from the hard special ops. So they're making the hard special ops harder, and then they're giving you a material that will allow you to craft the advanced shape stabilizers. And then for the recipe of those, it will require the previous lower level of the same shape stabilizer, some general mats, and then the mat that you collect from the hard special ops to craft those. They did say that they will be adding in a improvement to the mission support system. So this is like a Looking for Group Light, or it's basically the SOS flare system for Monster Hunter. So if you have an open mission and you make it public, or you request support on the mission you're working on, there will now be a brand new screen that will show all of the local people that are on your general network area that are requesting support on the mission they're working on, and you can view them and join them directly. So clicking on one of these will have you join that mission to help that player. I think this will help bring together new players and veteran players may just want to join up and help people with the missions while they're trying to push through. They did say that they are working on a true party finder system where you can actually create a party saying looking for 3 more for Defiler, bring electric damage or something. And then you can view the full list of party finder, click on the ones you want, join up, and then queue for hard content. And they said that that is going to be coming. They're trying to target that for a March release. They also mentioned that you will be able to copy loadouts now. This is going to be a very light light implementation of this. You basically will only be able to copy the loadout from one of your other loadouts. So you can copy, like go to a fresh loadout, copy your other loadout over to a new loadout, and then be able to mess with it there, which is a nice change. But I was really hoping when they mentioned copy loadouts that they were going to do the Warframe system. In Warframe, if you haven't played before, which is a very similar looter shooter to TFD, you can actually post your full loadout in chat or send it to other players through a whisper. They can click on it and copy it from the link that you send them in game. So if you have like a full bunny build and say, hey, can I check out your bunny build? You can just send it to another player like you're linking an item in an MMO, and they can look at the full loadout and copy it if they want to, which is an awesome system that I think they should look to add. They did say that they're going to look to add that for the March release, but at least for next week, they're adding a copy button which will allow you to copy your own loadouts from one tab to another, which will allow you to at least save some time when you're making new loadouts. Previous Battle Pass weapons are going to be coming back in a limited sense, so if you missed out on Sigvor's Proof or the Season 1 Excava, you will be able to get these from Descendant. So Descendant is getting huge promotions in his usefulness in this next patch. Not only will you be able to go to him for the weapon core unlocks and unleashes, but you also will be able to farm various materials across the game in different ways, and then use those materials to reacquire any Battle Pass weapons that you may have missed. So if you didn't get the sticky grenade launcher Sigvor's Proof, which is actually quite good at base, or if you missed Excava last season, or when this season ends and you miss out on Voltia, you will be able to go to Descendant to get those back. In general quality of life, they're going to be having the option to hide the weapon that you have on your back. So if you wanted to just show your character by default, you can do that in the new update. They're going to show display friends recent login time, which, you know, that there's pros and cons to this, but I think the biggest pro that was pointed out in my chat is that since you can only have 50 friends on your friends list, maybe someone who hasn't logged in since last summer, you can remove them and add new people that are more active by showing their recent login time. And they're also going to be continuing to look at the immunity orb phase for the bosses that don't really feel very good to have them, and just move those into other states, which could be really cool. And lastly, there will be new cosmetics coming into the store. Ines is going to be launching with these 3 Ines. I don't think these are even global. I think they're just coming with Ines. So there'll be these 3 Ines kind of like skin tight suits for her that she'll be able to use as part of her base skit. And then I think this is all going to work great with like coloration options. So the fact that we can color the default, and there will be these other variants that are similar to her default that you can all color and recolor, will probably give people a lot of options. And you can also see that the white and red here are basically the same exact skin, which is different color defaults and accents. So you'll have different options there. And of course, there's different hair options here as well. All 3 of these have different hair for the people that really want to change around the head accessories. There will also be 4 new Lunar New Year skins, 3 for female and 1 for male as depicted here. So you're going to have kind of these Lunar New Year style. This is very Chun-Li on the right. People are mentioning that. And you have like this kind of Cyber Ninja Ghost Runner style skin in the middle here for male Descendants, which will likely be a general overall universal skin. So let me know if this is something you're going to pick up right away. They definitely went all in on that kind of theme, and people definitely responded positively to the like concepts that they showed earlier. There's also going to be like new emotes and different animations that go along with this as well to keep the store updated and keep things fresh for them. And to keep things in line for them wanting to always have events active, they are going to be launching a brand new New Year's event with this patch that will include a bunch of good stuff in it: weapon boxes, new cosmetics, and of course catalysts, advanced shape stabilizers, boost, gold, Kuiper, all of that. So a new event will launch with this patch as well. And that's it for the dev stream. Hopefully this was a nice way to kind of just run through all of it, and let me know what you think about the update coming next week for the First Descendant down below. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.